We went through 1 Corinthians 14 here a couple of weeks ago, and it is online if you want to refresh it. What I'm going to try to do is I've got a copy of it, and I'm going to put all the PowerPoints along with it first chance I get. I've been, like I was telling some of the guys a while ago, they put me on some new medication, and this medication, I cannot stay awake. I slept 19 hours the other day. I just could not wake up. And that's one of my problems right now. And I'll probably go to sleep during Kenny Wayne's sermon, but y'all don't tell him that, okay? Oh, he's in here. Just don't let me snore, Danny, okay? But anyway, I go in tomorrow, and they're going to do, I think it's going to be the final surgeries. And go in tomorrow at 10. I don't know if it's, I hope it's outpatient. I really do, but we'll see. So, but anyway, went through 1 Corinthians, and now we're going to get into another one that is pretty difficult, and there's been controversy on it for years. And one of the things that's happened, we made mention before, that now we have access to things that we did not have 50 years ago, and I'll show you some of that in just a moment. There's one of the words that we'll be looking at here is the only time it's used in the New Testament. And so it's very confusing as to what it actually means. But thank goodness we have access to other libraries so we can find the same word used in contemporary usage for the first 200 years of the New Testament. So it overlaps. The New Testament and all that, the secular usage of it, and so we can get an understanding of what the word actually means nowadays, which we couldn't do several years ago. And so what we're going to look at first is the city of Ephesus. It is a metropolitan city. It's probably the third largest city in the Roman Empire at this time, and we've got problems in the church going on here that Paul is writing to. We've got some problems in Ephesus, and I'm not going to tell you, you can look these up later, but some of the things that are going on there, some people are teaching false doctrine, chapter 1, verse 3. Don't know what that false doctrine is until we get through here, but we're going to get a kind of an overall picture of it, and we can kind of infer the things that are going on. Some people are preoccupied with things like myths, and they have a fascination with genealogies, and there's a reason for that we'll talk about here in a little bit. The myths and the genealogies is very important to the passage we're going to be studying. In 5 and 6, verse chapter 1, some have turned away from love, honesty, and faith, and they're engaging in empty discussions. It's kind of like they're sitting around the dinner table at night and or playing cards or canasta or something like that, and they're speculating on what God is actually saying in His law. They want to be teachers of the law, but they're ignorant of the law. And there's a reason they want to be teachers of the law is because the Gentiles, the problems that are going on here will tie all the way back to Genesis, the first chapter, creation account, and the third chapter, the fall. And we'll see some of that in just a little bit. Some more of the problems is they've rejected the faith, faith and consciousness, and they've suffered shipwreck according to the faith. In other words, they've drifted so far away in what they're saying and what they're doing that Paul says it's like a ship that has been crashed up against the rocks. That's the idea that he's saying here. There's anger and there's disputing. Inside the assembly, people are fighting and fussing with one another. And that's not a good thing. And people are wanting priority, wanting the preeminence and what have you. We see that going on here. Chapter 2, verse 9, some of the women are dressing inappropriately. This being the city of Ephesus, it's not a matriarchal society, but it is a definite society where women have all kinds of liberties. And they're flaunting their wealth. They're flaunting just who they are and what they are. And right in the face of everybody else. And this is coming, they're bringing this into the church. There's no humility, no humbleness or anything like that with some of these ladies, okay? Some women, some people are demanding asceticism. And what I mean by that, they're saying you can't eat certain foods, you can't marry, and there's a reason behind that. And we'll see about this a little bit. Some people are advocating godless myths as doctrine. And these myths that we're talking about, we're going to try to reveal them as we go on this morning. But they're bringing that into the church. I heard a guy the other day on, one of my friends sent me one of them TikTok things, and the guy was up there preaching, and he said Adam and Eve weren't the first people. Says we had people like Cro-Magnons and all that before Adam and Eve got here. They were the first ones to be created. And God told them, he says, I want you to replenish the earth. He says you can't replenish the earth unless it's been plenished. The earth was plenished. So some of this ignorance is just coming in, and we still have it today. People say things that they have know absolutely nothing about, and it's based on speculation. I think Benny Hinn was on television one time, and he was talking about how the word grace in the Greek, and when he said it, it caught my ear because that wasn't the word grace that he used. And so I knew right then that Benny Hinn didn't know a Greek letter from a chicken track. And he was up there just trying to advocate things that he wasn't saying, and he was talking to people who weren't going to look. Okay? So this is what's going on here in Ephesus. Some of the other problems going on, some of the older women are getting frisky. All right? That sounds a little strange, doesn't it? But that's what's happening here. And they're advocating things like open sexuality and what have you. A woman by the name of Kaiser or something like that, professor over at one of these colleges, will even translate 2 Timothy 2:12 as stay away from sexual exploitation and things like that. So I think that's wrong, but anyway, that's what they're doing. Younger widows are given over to sensual desires. They're becoming busybodies and advocating unholy things. Talking about other people, getting into other people's business. They're doing all sorts of stuff along this line. Some of the older men are openly involved in sin. And that's what Paul is talking about. If any man desires to be an overseer, he's got to have a good report. Some of the deacons as well, you have to watch those things. Slaves are disrespecting their masters and not giving honor where honor is due. And it doesn't say anything that's reciprocal, but anyway, apparently they were taking care of their household servants and what have you, okay? Some people are rebelling against Paul's teachings, and they are giving young Timothy a hard time about it. And Timothy seems a little bit intimidated. We won't go into that right now. That's a different lesson. But he seems a little bit intimidated about what's happening here. All right, so here's the problems. 1 Timothy 2:11 and 12. Let the women learn in silence with all subjection. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but be in silence. Pretty plain, right? How did we get here? Well, we just read the Bible, right? Not exactly, all right? And the reason I say that is because you've got to remember Rome is the major empire on the planet right then. And Rome, their various emperors, many of you have probably heard of a fellow by the name of Constantine. Constantine got tired of fighting Christians. As a matter of fact, he said he had a dream and he saw the cross of Christ, and so he had the shields of all of his soldiers painted with a red cross on it as he went out to battle. Well, they won the battle. And so he thought God was on his side, and so he assimilated the church all over and made it the national religion. That's when things started happening in the church. Well, it started happening before that, but that's when the church started going downhill, because by 325 AD, it was no longer the church that you see in the New Testament. At the Nicene Council, it became the Holy Roman Catholic Church. They set everything into motion for what you have now. And you talk about apostatize, they apostatized in so many ways it's not even funny, with their iconology and their various doctrines and what have you. So, and you can read about all these things. If you go online, you can pick up Constantine and the assimilation of the church if you want to, and you can pick up some pretty good information on that. But in this, you've heard this fellow's name before, Jerome. Jerome was commissioned by Pope Damasus, I think his name was, there were so many different versions of the Latin Bible, in the Old Latin, and none of them read the same. And he says, what we're going to do, Jerome, is I want you to put together a Bible that we can all use that will say the same, and we're going to make it for everybody. It's kind of like the Latin version of the King James, all right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get everything to be used by everybody, standardized. So what I read is the same thing you read. You won't be able to argue about it. So Jerome goes to work in translating the Bible, and he's doing that from the Greek Septuagint for the Old Testament and the few manuscripts that he had in Greek, and he's translating the Bible. Now, Jerome is like most every man during that period of time. It's a very patriarchal society, all right? I mean, very patriarchal. Look at what he said about wife. A wife is classed with the greatest of evils. He didn't care too much for women, all right? Oh, he liked to use them, but hey, he didn't care about women. They were below his dignity. And that's the way women were. And so what happened is during this period of time, the equality between men and women went by the wayside. There wasn't any equality whatsoever. And what I mean by that, we each have our station in life and the things we're supposed to do, each have our responsibilities. But when it comes to things in the church, women were put on the bench to the side. And what I mean by it's kind of like today. Bless our heart, women, if we're going to have a fellowship dinner, they can do something. If, we need babysitters, they're going to do something. Preachers don't get hired unless they're married nowadays because they have to have somebody to teach young kids, and they're going to get his wife as a second teacher, getting two for, it's called a twofer. All right? They're getting two for the price of one. And so this is what's going on all throughout church history, is this idea of equality has gone by the wayside. And, of course, that's one of the problems. Now, when he's translating what's called the Latin Vulgate, he's doing that out of the Old Latin, we find that words take on new meanings, and passages that might put women on equal footing with men were altered. I want you to get that, underline that. Passages that would put women on an equal plane with men were altered. In some cases, it was subtly. Other cases, it was more dramatic, all right? Let me give you some examples. Okay. Romans 16, that's 16:1, not 11, okay? Paul is saying this, I commend you unto you, Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant of the church which is in Cenchrea, that you receive her in the Lord as becometh saints, and that you assist her in whatever business she hath need of you. For she hath been a succorer of many, and of myself also. That's King James Version. Okay? Now, when we look at that, Phoebe is a servant. Okay? However, I want you to look at that word just a second. You see, that word comes to us from, actually, these two words we're going to look at. But the first one comes to us from a Greek word, diakonon. That sound familiar? Diakonon. And people say, well, I've almost heard that before. What does it mean? Well, it's the same identical thing he's talking about in 1 Timothy 3, verse 8. Likewise, must the deacons be grave, not double-tongued, not given much wine, not greedy of filthy lucre. Diakonon is the same word that we use for deacon. So Phoebe was a deacon of the church in Cenchrea. Okay? But they're going to translate it as servant, or translate it as minister, or things of that nature. And does it have those connotations? Yes. But he wanted to go as far away as he could from the fact that Phoebe could actually be a deacon in the church, okay? Now, with that in mind, what about succor? Prostachio. Sounds like pistachio, doesn't it? But the idea is, what are we talking about here? Well, when you look that word up and you go to find it anywhere, I am really amazed that the first one I came to carries the general information. And the first one I came to was Strong's. You say, why did you use Strong's? Well, sometimes Strong's is okay if you go by the primary meaning of the word, okay? Because Strong's, what he's doing is going to tell you how the word is translated in different places. Stay with the primary meaning. But look at what he says. It's a noun, it's a feminine noun, properly a woman who is set over others. Whoop, wait a minute. Phoebe was a succorer. No, she was a woman who was set over others. B, a female guardian, a protectress, a patron. Whoa, care for the affairs of others, aiding them with her resources, a succorer. Okay? When you look at that, you don't get that out of that word succorer, do you? You don't understand that. But, huh? A nurturer, yes. That's a nurturer. But as such, she was a woman who was set over others. That's what the word means. It also means a female guardian, protectress, and patroness. She, huh? All I know is she was a deaconess who was in charge of something in the church. Okay? That's what's going on with that. Now, we've got 2,000 years of problems going on with the church. Okay? This verse, people have a lot of difficulties with. In the King James, let the women learn in silence with all subjection, but I suffer not a woman to teach, nor usurp authority over the man, but be in silence. That's King James Version. New International, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. Okay? There's a thing here that people don't normally notice. If you look at 1 Timothy 2:9, in like manner also the women. The women. He is using the plural of women. However, when he gets to Timothy 2:11, let a woman learn in silence and subjection. He's brought it down to a single person now. Okay? Not just the plural, but the single. Okay? Singular noun. A woman should learn in quietness and silence. Now, as we get into that, do women learn in quietness and silence today? Huh? No. We allow them to talk, don't we? Okay? Yeah. Ask questions, do these things. But there's a problem here. And the problem is this word heskos. It means quietness or stillness, implying calm for the believer. It's a calmness. It's not jumping up and yelling, not getting arrogant and things of that nature. Not in silence, but quietness. All right? I had a lady over in in Georgia, Sister Ballou. Remember her? Do you remember Sister Ballou? Every Bible class was a challenge. She would come up out of left field. She used the King James. Of course, I was having to use the King James for being in Georgia. But what I would do is I would get a word, I'd explain it, and she would start up. I wasn't into a class 5 minutes. And 20 minutes of the class was Sister Ballou arguing. And I think, boy, how many times I wanted to pull this out and draw it out of context. But bless her heart, she's gone to be with the Lord now. But it doesn't mean speechlessness, okay? That's not what we're talking about. Quietness, calmness, no animosity and things of that nature. Peace, that's what they're looking for. Let the women learn peacefully. Don't create problems inside the Bible class, all right? This is what's taken here. But then he says, I suffer a woman not to teach. Notice that's a woman, not women. It's the singular. I suffer a woman not to teach. But every woman who prays or prophesies, 1 Corinthians 11, with her head uncovered, dishonors her head. Now, wait a minute. This is what women are doing. When they're prophesying by the Word of God and by inspiration, they are teaching. And that's what's going on in 1 Corinthians. And so what we have here is a contradiction. Back here he says, don't teach. But over here he says, y'all do it, but you have to cover your heads, all right? So we have this contradiction in Paul's things. What is he talking about over here in Timothy? Well, let's keep going. Don't want them women to assume authority over a man. Don't want you to do that. This word is the one that really really gets under people's skin, authority. This is where the bad guy comes in, okay? And what happens, Jerome takes the Greek word authentin, and he translates it into English to exercise authority. He changed the word from what it meant to dominare. What does that sound like? Dominate. All right? And that's what Jerome did. He didn't translate the word. He put down his idea of what the word meant in the Latin. And guess what? Where do you think Erasmus got his version of the Greek, the New Testament, the Textus Receptus? He got it from seven manuscripts and the Latin version of the New Testament. He got them from Jerome. That's where they come from. So when he does that, New International finds it. Here's what we talked about a while ago. The hapax logomena. Literally what that means is this is a word that is only used one time in the Bible. It's kind of hard to understand what the word means, seeing it one time. Okay? We don't really understand what that word meant because in the Bible, whether it's the Greek Septuagint or whether it's the New Testament or letters of Paul or the Gospels or any of the general epistles, anything, it's not there. Only used this one time here in 1 Timothy. So what do? Thank goodness. We now have access to all sorts of things. It's called the Thesaurus Lingua Graecia, which literally means the treasury of the Greek language. This is over in University of Southern California. They put it together. It's been a project going on for more than 20 years. They have all sorts of writings from Greek authors that are now in Hebrew authors who knew Greek, and bringing these things in to where we can get an understanding of what the word means. I copied them for you. Okay? Polybius, 2nd century BC. This is 200 years before New Testament. Doer of a massacre. 3rd Maccabees, 1 BC. That's what you'll find inside the Septuagint. It's in between the Old Testament, between Malachi and Matthew. You got 1st, 2nd, 3rd Maccabees, and things of that nature. In 3rd Maccabees means restrictions. Diodorus Siculus, 1 BC to 1 AD. Here we go. We're right in the time of the New Testament now. What did it mean? Perpetuators of sacrilege, authors of crimes, supporters of violent action. Philo Julius, being one's own murderer. Flavius Josephus. Anybody ever heard of Josephus? Yeah, you've heard of him. Flavius Josephus, 1 AD, perpetrator of a crime, perpetuator of slaughter. New Testament, it was to be determined. Okay? People say, what's that word mean? So what they're doing is they're circling the word is how it was used in society, how it was culturally used. Appian of Alexandria, 2 AD, murderers, slayers of themselves, perpetuator of evil. Again, a homily by Pseudo Clement, sole power. Irenaeus, authority, 3 times. Harpocration, murderer. Phrenicus, one who murders by his own hand. Also used it for the term master. From BDAG, Brown and Art Gingrich and somebody else, okay, lexicon. In reference to whatever, 1 BC, 5 BC to 1 BC. A murderer, fragment from the rhetorical of Polybus, authorized, or murderous, the papyrus, BGU 4, okay, come to have authority. New Testament, 1 citation to be determined. Ptolemy, dominates, all right. Do you see the negative connotation of what that word has? If you're going to surround all that together, what you're looking at is violence, okay? Basically, that's what we're looking at. And so what we have here is the woman, not all women, but the woman that he's talking about in 1 Timothy 12, 1 Timothy 2, 11 and 12. It's a woman, not a whole bunch of women, but a woman who is doing this. And apparently she is disrupting things in a violent manner. I want you to keep that silence here. Temple of Artemis. Yes, Wayne.
I guess I'm missing maybe the
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I understand. I understand. Grammatically, he has made a shift in thought. Okay. He has been talking about women, and now he's addressing the problem that is going on there with a woman. Okay? Yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, using it generalities, okay? And could that be? Yeah, it could be, but Paul, like I said, he shifts right in the middle of all this. It goes to the singular woman like he's addressing a particular problem, which he's been doing all throughout the letters, addressing problems and problem makers, okay? Let me continue here just a second. You'll see what I'm doing here. Temple of Artemis, great place. It is one of the seven wonders of the world, ancient world, okay? Huge, humongous, but it's a major source of false doctrine all throughout Asia Minor, okay? Big problems with them there because it was, everybody went there, all right? Temple of Artemis, that's the Artemis from Ephesus. That's what she looked like. She's not the little one that's dressed in a short dress, carrying a bow, and has a stag beside her, like the Roman Diana. Artemis of Ephesus is weird looking, all right? They used to think that those things on her chest were multi-breasted because she was a mother goddess. Now they're saying that they're not connected, and they believe they're part of the sacrifice of bulls. And I'll let you go to your imagination with that, all right, that they put upon her. All right, so she is the mother goddess, and like I said, bulls, that's one of the reasons they've got that there, because that's what sacrifices were for her. But Artemis was probably one of the most popular deities of all the Greek gods, located at Ephesus. She vowed to be a virgin. As a matter of fact, when she was born, she immediately had to help her mother deliver Apollo, all right? So, I mean, she was quick. I don't know how big she was when she was born, but that's the whole thing here. What she does is she takes away pain women face while giving birth, and that went along with her protective nature. She was a protector of women and made her the perfect image of a mother goddess. Euripides, you ever hear him? Some of you have. Euripides says this: there was a goddess whom the Greeks identified with, Artemis, and to whom all strangers that were thrown on the coast of Taurus were sacrificed. Huh? Shipwreck victims were taken and sacrificed to Artemis. What he's saying, okay? Herapolio. Artemis was worshipped, and the boys were scourged at their altar in such a manner that it became sprinkled with their blood. This cruel ceremony was believed to have been introduced by Lycurgus instead of the human sacrifice, which had until then been offered to her. So at one time they were offering human sacrifice to her. Now they're just beating up boys. All right. Artemis was worshipped. And by the way, that those things that Herapolio, those guys were 10. I guess you would almost like, not priests, but they were managers. They were in charge of seeing the sacrifices were made and who could make them and who could approach the temple and things of that nature. And so this is what's going on there. And by the way, they also took over all young girls, which they reached the age of 10, had to go to that temple and serve. Now they were virgins, but they had to serve until they were marrying age. All right? So I mean, that's a terrible thing to go on with here, but that's what she was. She was the patron mother of all them young kids. So, 1 Timothy 1, 3, and 4. Teach false doctrines. He says, you command them not to teach false doctrines any longer. Devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies. Artemis they were heavily involved in her genealogy. They wanted to see what was going on with her genealogy. She was born, her brother Apollos, and all that. They wanted to trace it all down to see about if it could, the priests at the temple would be involved there. And the myth of Diana was that She was the patron saint of all the city and all the women and childbirth and everything else. As a matter of fact, Paul tells Timothy, you don't have anything to do with these godless myths and old wives' tales, things that are going on here in Ephesus. Pausanias, first century Greek geographer, says it's Artemis the Savior. Okay? She was a savior of women. And not just him, but I think there's about 20 more accounts where she's referred to as being the savior of women. Now, when you get over here, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. Okay? We ask, why, Paul? Why? I mean, you just told them in Corinth they could prophesy and pray. Why? Well, here's the reason. He goes into the next verse. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing. Did you know that? Women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety. Wait a minute. I thought we were saved by the life and blood of Jesus Christ. Were we not? What about women who can't have children? You got it. You got it. Because this is what Paul is actually saying here, and a lot of people don't grab onto that. I'm proud of you, Pam. For Adam was formed first. Okay, now wait a minute. What's that? Conjunction, gar. And it means it's for a marker of reason or cause. And so what he is saying here, because Adam was formed first, then Eve, Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing. Wait a minute. Women. Literally in the Greek, but she will be saved through childbearing. I think King James might say that. Okay? She will be saved. Who's he talking about? Antecedent of the woman is Eve. Not women, woman. Why do they put women? Okay? Literally, it's woman. Okay? Singular. So, through childbearing, the technogenos, okay? What's it mean? Literally, through the birth of a child. Women will be saved through the birth of the child. What child? Pam hit it right on the head. You hit it right on the head. What child? He's pointing back to Genesis 3 and the 3:15, wherein Adam and Eve were after the fall. Lo and behold, Eve is told she's going to bring forth the son, and he's going to bruise Satan's head, and Satan's going to bruise his heel. That's the child that we're talking about here. A woman will be saved through the birth of a child. All right? So what's the solution? Yeah, Wayne?
Back up one. I'm with you. But then, if they, I don't know who they are.
Huh?
If they, I don't know if that's referring to men and women, or whether that's referring to women in general.
I think it's referring back to who we're talking about prior to this. I might be wrong. Okay? Wait a minute. Let me see something here. Hold on. Let me see something here. That's, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay. In In the Greek, it's a singular feminine noun. She will be saved. They changed, but, yeah, they changed it to they, when in actuality it should be she.
No, it's she will be saved if they continue.
Oh.
Who is the they? That's who he's referring to.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. If they,
We don't have the punctuation there.
huh?
We don't have the punctuation after childbearing. There could be a semicolon, you know.
Could be,
And it could be referring to Adam and Eve, in that they've got the plural women,
yeah,
it could be referring to womankind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, could be, Danny, don't know. Here's the thing. This is one solution. It's one of many, and everybody and their brother's got opinions on this, and I'm going to give you mine. And if by the grace of God, we're going to treat each other okay, all right? Because what's happening here is you've got a group of women who are followers of Artemis, more than likely, and they are involved in wanting to be teachers of the law, but they don't know what they're talking about. Well, if they're talking about Adam and Eve and the genealogy and what have you, and talking about Artemis coming in and being the protector, all this other stuff, and trying to find the genealogies, as Daddy says, might be trying to find the genealogy of Jesus, or they're talking about the genealogy of Artemis and trying to tie the two together. Whatever it might be, they are creating a turmoil in this thing. And they are doing it in a violent manner, what's going on here, whoever it is that's doing the teaching, what have you. It's creating problems among the young women. It's creating problems with the men. They're getting angry and disputing, what have you. All this is going on here. And they're tying this together, and Paul is saying, you need to back off, all right? Timothy, you confront these people who are teaching these false doctrines. Realize that women are not saved through Artemis. Women are saved through the birth of the child, which is Jesus. And Adam and Eve show that. That's it, the promise was even made in Genesis 3:15. So this is what Paul is combating here. Remember, he's in jail. And Timothy is the one facing all of this. And Paul is hearing about it. He's involved with it. Timothy might have told him. I don't know. But here's the thing that's happening here. So the solution is stop the violence, learn in quietness, and learn, and quit trying to be a teacher because you don't know what you're talking about. And so this is what is taking place here in Ephesus. For what that's worth, the word authentin, quietness doesn't mean in silence like some translated it. Quietness means have a gentle demeanor in listening and paying attention to what's going on here, as opposed to the violence. You say something, Pam? Oh, yeah. It would have been so much easier. But this is one of those things that we get when we have only one word jumping out at us, and that's why we kind of surrounded it a while ago as to what that word meant by looking 100 years before and 100 years after, and it still contains the idea of violent confrontation. Okay, Wayne?
I guess, and I certainly have done the study that you've done, one of the controversies that I've seen, read about is whether or not you're interpreting it that it was a specific situation in Ephesus. Others have interpreted it to have been more widespread throughout the church, and that these applied throughout that. And
It
I don't know the answer to that.
could have been widespread. If you'll remember over in the book of Revelation, you had a woman by the name of Jezebel who was doing basically the same thing. So, anyway, there you have it. All righty? And so I appreciate your bearing with me on this. It's been a long go-round and a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. We're done with it. We're out of time. Huh? We appreciate it. Thank y'all.